This presentation will also be a bit longer than usual, as we'll be covering a trio of writers whose works relate to the American Southwest with its arid desert climate, and comment both on the astounding population growth there that was underway in the 1960s and continues to this day, and the complicated and contentious struggles to access water that makes that extraordinary growth possible within that region. Edward Abbey's voice approaches that of Rachel Carson, who you've now met, and Wendell Berry, who you'll also meet this week, as a proponent of maintaining the balance between humankind and nature. And despite Abbey's varied biography, he is most associated with the desert geography of the American Southwest. We cover here one of his best-known works, Desert Solitaire, from which your Down the River piece is taken. And we also consider the Monkey Wrench Gang, which relates heavily to the writer Doug Peacock, whose work is also linked as one of this week's assigned readings. To begin, we should recognize that the desert geography and topography is an essential part of these works. In this desert climate, water is a scarce resource, and as this map points out, the major rivers in the area, and the only area in the U.S. where four states come together in a single point, the so-called Four Corners region, conjoins Utah, Arizona, New Mexico, and Colorado. We therefore see the importance of the Colorado River to this region, and you'll see links on the content page to some additional materials which provide context for that key geographical detail. Here you see a couple of images of my hometown of Phoenix, Arizona, which now stands as the fifth most populated metropolitan area in the United States. What's noteworthy about that fact is that the region gets only about 10 to 12 inches of rain each year, as opposed to the 40 to 50 inches that we typically get here in Tennessee. That's a pretty astounding fact when you think about it. That fact becomes more remarkable when we consider Phoenix, a major city alongside other mid-sized cities in the southwestern deserts, including Las Vegas, Tucson, and Palm Springs in California, all of which also rely on the Colorado River as their primary water source. Other cities in the region, including Albuquerque and El Paso, also face their own ongoing water-related struggles. Abbey's record as a radical environmentalist is well known. Again, your Down the River reading is the centerpiece of his best known and most enduring book, Desert Solitaire, published in 1968. His most influential book, however, is probably The Monkey Wrench Gang, published in 1975, the one that gave rise to the term monkey wrenching. In a quick biographical note, during Abbey's time on the English faculty at the University of Arizona, the university itself, famous for its programs in astronomy and optical science, was embroiled in a land dispute as it attempted to build a world-class observatory on the ecological sensitive terrains of Mount Graham in southern Arizona. This was the site of many real-life protest activities, monkey-wrenching ventures, and other legal conflicts. Though Abbey himself passed away in 1989, the protests over Mount Graham continued, including the one described on this slide, which took place in 1994. The popularity of Abbey's Monkey Wrench Gang led to the emergence of the term monkey wrenching as a method of environmental defense. With some strategic Googling, you'll likely find out more about this concept as central to Abbey's environmentalist attitudes. You're also linked to some contemporary images below which might help to amplify this concept more fully, so please give those a look if you're so inclined. Here you see the original cover of Abbey's book, which is set in the area around Glen Canyon, which straddles the Utah-Arizona border. This concept finds its greatest resonance The concept of monkey wrenching finds its greatest resonance among those who question the unchecked and largely unsustainable growth that has led to the post-war population boom throughout the American Southwest, which again continues to this day. The second image is of a Central Arizona Project canal, the public works effort which taps the Glen Canyon Reservoir, the first of two lakes formed by dams on the Colorado, brings water to Phoenix and to points south. Here are the two dams. The construction of the Glen Canyon Dam serves as a backdrop for Abbey's book Desert Solitaire, as he writes during the time when the area was rapidly transforming as a result of the greater availability of water. Glen Canyon is near the town of Moab in southern Utah, which is one of many satellite towns that grew because of its access to the reservoir's water. Again, Abbey's down the river and also prefers Port Elliott Porter's preface to The Place No One Knew. Two of your assigned readings detail what are probably the last records of the canyon in its natural state before it was flooded when construction of the dam was completed in 1966. The second image is of the iconic Hoover Dam, which is closest to Las Vegas and is still considered an architectural and mechanical marvel, even though it is now almost 80 years old. Again, you'll see below a couple of articles about current debates revolving around these dams, and if you're so inclined, it would be worth your while to pause and take a look at these. In his opening to Desert Solitaire, his 1968 publication, Abbey describes his book as not a travel guide but an elegy, a memorial, and a tombstone. What he means is explained by these pictures from the book The Place No One Knew, a collection of photographs by Elliott Porter and David Brower of the Sierra Club, published in 1963. Again, the author's preface to this photographic album, which is in your textbook, is the assigned readings, among your assigned readings this week. Here are a couple of images that Porter took to document what would ultimately be lost when the dam itself was finished. Some easy Googling will put you into contact with many other images like these. Unfortunately, with the construction of the dam, these places are now underwater, lost to the ages, and so recorded for posterity in these pictures. Abbey's book was written during those final years before the dam's construction was complete, and Down the River records in writing what is now documented for history in these stark photographic images from The Place No One Knew. Mainly, however, Desert Solitaire is set in southern Utah at the Arches National Park, not far from where the movie 127 Hours, which starred James Franco, was filmed. Abbey portrays a time during the process of modernizing the park in the early 1960s, which enhanced its accessibility for a wider variety of people. In short, he refers to upgrades in camp amenities, walkable trails, paved roads, parking facilities, and other measures taken to accommodate increasing loads of tourists. As you read his chapter titled Polemic Industrial Tourism, also assigned and in your textbook, consider the attitude that Abbey has toward this process of modernization and whether it is compatible with the goals and ethos of the national park system as a whole. Here are some points to consider about Desert Solitaire as a whole. The book is definitely worth a read if you're ever of a mind to give it a look. It is multi-dimensional, fits within the Romantic tradition, which finds transcendence in wilderness scenery, and is also visionary. As you make your way through the assigned readings, consider how they might also qualify in these ways. Desert Solitaire is especially noteworthy in its envisioning of the problems that face populations, growing populations in western states, and especially within their popular and overused national parks. These problems, first identified by Abbey in his 1968 publication, now loom with the specter of climate change with even greater intensity over 50 years after the book's original publication. Abbey, Porter, and Peacock are not lone voices, however. The history of the region's settlement as told by Mark Reisner is in his book of the same name called Cadillac Desert. Both Reisner and Abbey seek to understand how this water-scarce region developed so dramatically over the course of the 20th century, such that Phoenix is now the fifth largest city in the country, and Los Angeles is one of the two or three largest. John Graves's book, Goodbye to a River, appearing a few years earlier than Abbey's and set along the Brazos River near Dallas, Texas, describes a similar process of growth which led to the damming of an iconic river to facilitate the growth of another water-starved region. Of Abbey's 23 complete works, The Monkey Wrench has probably had the most direct impact, having been credited for inspiring the formation of the radical environmentalist group Earth First. Abbey's connection with this group has proven hard to define, but Dave Foreman's book, Confessions of an Eco-Warrior, available in MTSU's library, explains the connection most clearly. The overlapping focus of Abbey's books and the work of Elliot Porter has hopefully been adequately explained here, and well, the selection of Walking It Off by Doug Peacock also includes some observations about Abbey's book as told by the individual who has been credited for inspiring the character of George Washington Hayduke, one of Abbey's most memorable figures and an iconic folk hero in the American West of a certain era. As a result of his portrayal in the Monkey Wrench Gang, Hayduke did become a sort of 1970s and 80s era folk hero in select spaces in the American West, and was also the focus of Abbey's final novel titled Hayduke Lives. Meanwhile, as he explains in the assigned reading, Peacock both reveled in and struggled with, but ultimately outgrew his immature identification with the iconic Hayduke character, and has since reinvented himself as a wildlife defender and wilderness advocate whose work now focuses on studying predators and also on recording and protecting grizzly bear populations in Montana and other western states. As a damaged and angry Army medic and Vietnam War veteran, the younger Peacock found solace first in the wilderness of the American West and also working to defend it. He later found additional solace in researching and writing about predators, particularly those imperiled grizzly populations in national parks and forests, so his career as an environmentalist and wilderness defender is also quite memorable. I've linked you to a short clip on the content page which might help to explain this aspect of his life and work in fuller terms, so please review it as you see fit. With some additional strategic Googling, you can find out more about Graves, Reisner, Foreman, Peacock, and Abbey, all of whom help to provide context for understanding the problems associated with the settlement of the American West. I hope you enjoyed this presentation about Abbey's work, and I hope it explains his continuing influence. So for now, I'll thank you for listening.